Welcome to episode 3 of the Scaff Champ edition of the View with Vertex. I'm joined by my next two guests. They are Simon Boys of Scaff Plan and Nikita Hall, also Scaff Plan.
Hello.
Heaps, welcome.
Yep, thanks for having us. Happy to be here. It's a long way from home.
Yeah. So whereabouts is home?
I'm from Townsville, which is on the northeastern coast of Queensland, Australia. Nikita's Agnes Waters.
Agnes Water, a little town about 10 hours south of Townsville. So
If you
10 hours
Google,
south, which in Australian terms is like round the corner. Isn't it?
Exactly.
if you Google Agnes Waters, it'll be like a little tiny drop. You won't
tiny.
even know
Right.
where it is. But to drive from my office to her office, it'd be about 10 hours in the car.
And how far from Townsville to Mariba?
Or maybe 2 or 3 hours to
Let's
Mariba.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Seb was saying just off air a couple of seconds ago, I did do a bit of work up in Mariba. I worked for a company called How Farming.
There you go.
How much do you know about the Australian sort of the 417 visa? Do you know much about that?
Yeah, a little bit. We got quite a few good workers that come in and come from the UK, the Philippines, all over the place coming to Australia. So
Yeah, so that was our story. Me and the missus were on a 417 visa, and as the condition of the getting the second year's visa, you have to do regional work. Scaffolding is included in regional work, so I could have worked on the mines and at a fortune. Problem is, the missus is a terrible scaffolder, so we wanted to work together.
yeah, we can work on that.
So we ended up in Mariba. We worked for How Farming, picking bananas. Hard.
That's
Yakka
hard
is the
labour.
word of
Hard,
the
Yakka.
hard yakka.
Hard yakka.
Yeah.
Yeah, difficult job, man.
Yep. Yeah, hot summers, cold winters in Mariba.
Yeah, that was a bit of a shock as well, because we when we first got to Cairns, it was it March? I think it was March. So like it was quite warm in Cairns, but then when you go up to the Tablelands,
Up the mountain.
yeah,
It's a different
quite
story.
cool.
Yep.
And it was not at all what I expected of Australia. And the funny thing was, the missus had been there earlier, so she'd already kind of had a bit of an experience. She was in Perth.
Yep.
She'd
Yeah,
already
okay.
been in the hostels and doing the backpacking, as
Nice.
it's often referred to. I didn't really get the chance to do that because I came later on, and she had to do the regional work to stay.
Okay.
She had all the fun and you do all the work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty well. Such is life.
Baptism by
That's right.
fire.
I was in Ned Kelly comment that, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah,
Such is
that's-
life as
nice.
well. More Australian
Ned Kelly.
references.
This might be an Australian podcast by the end of this.
Yeah, well,
So-
you'll have to give us an invite.
Always welcome.
But yeah, we as part of getting that second year's visa, we had to go and work up there, and amazing, but not what we expected. Not what I expected at all. Like you say, she'd had all this backpacking and travelling around and pool parties and this, and I'm just stuck on a banana farm covered in banana sap. And,
Slugging away,
Yeah.
picking bananas.
Can't have been that good. You come back to the motherland. We're all descendants in Australia of the
yeah,
UK.
well, the reason why we came back was to have the kids. And we discussed before we had the kids. We were like, well, what would happen if we did, you got pregnant while we were over here? And she was like, we kind of both signed off on the fact that it's a better place to bring up the kids in Australia. The education was great, the parks, surfing,
The
what-
scaffolders are better.
Yeah. Well, they were when I got there. Cut that part out. Everything. And, from a financial perspective, she was a HR manager for Colas in Western Australia. So,
Nice.
really,
Good job.
really good job. Absolutely blagged it as well. I think I can say this now because it's been enough time since
Yeah.
we left.
You're
but-
not liable anymore or anything.
yeah, well, what happened was we knew a family, and the manager, he was like the general manager for Colas Western Australia, and Colas were just moving into Western Australia at the time. And we're at a party at their house, we're drinking and all the rest of it. And she goes, we're getting to the end of our second year. I'd give us a job, Sean. I've name dropped him here now as well. He's left anyway, but give us a job. And he's going like, well, what do you do? She went, well, I work in insurance. I've worked in insurance for the last few years. And he goes, oh, have you ever done anything in HR? She goes, yeah. I hadn't. But she goes,
Fake
yeah.
it till you make it.
Yeah, exactly. Fake it till you make it. So she goes, right, well, I'll send, he goes, send me a CV and we'll see where it goes. We are actually looking to employ someone for that position. So we carry on drinking, whatever. He goes to bed. We carry on drinking till like 4 o'clock in the morning. And just before we're leaving, Sarah goes, where's Sean's computer? So Mags, his wife, goes, it's over there in the corner. Why do you want that? She went, let me send him a CV. So she jumps on the computer, sends him a resume at 4:00 in the morning off his own computer, which he opens up on Monday morning. I was like, okay, that was quick.
Yep.
Interviews, she gets the job, and then she got the sponsorship.
Winning.
Good on her.
Yeah. So I was a kept man, and
You were,
There you go.
weren't you?
I was a de facto. I had to keep myself in check.
Sounds like she's got the brains.
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone who knows the both of us would debate on that. I think definitely the brains of it. Definitely wears the. Can you say that anymore? Wears the trousers?
I think so.
Well,
Well,
if you can't,
I'm in the room, so I'm
we did-
allowing it. Is
yeah,
that okay?
yeah.
Well, I wear the trousers at home. And my
Well, I
wife
wear a
just
dress
tells
at
me.
home if I can help it.
My
You can
wife
tell
just
this is
tells
the
me.
first episode with.
Yeah, sure. A couple of beers. Yeah, I wear the trousers, but my wife just tells me which ones to wear.
yeah. That's pretty much the common analogy, isn't it?
Cool.
Oh, we're gonna have to talk scaffolding now after all that
Oh.
interesting
Maybe.
stuff. Well, I think your business is definitely an interesting one of all the scaffolding companies, certainly in Australia and probably elsewhere as well, because you're delving now into the software as a service
Yeah.
space.
Been a bit of a different journey.
Yeah.
How did that start?
Well, I got the scaffolding business back in Australia. Benchmark Scaffolding I think we started 2010. Specialise in high risk and complex projects, mines, refineries, ports, bridges. We kind of got bored pretty early on chasing walls around buildings and stuff like that. So kind of needed to niche out. At the start, we were no different to anyone else. We had Quick Stage at the time. We'd turn up on a job site or to attend a meeting and we'd be the same as everyone else. So we kind of needed a little bit of a point of difference. So sold all our Quick Stage. We shipped it all off to Papua New Guinea and started again, bought all Leia.
And Leia was, I guess, around, what did you say, 2000?
2010, this would have been starting in 2010, so this would have been 2012.
Was really starting to make a presence.
Yeah, we were still probably one of the early adopters. It was, we looked at all the different systems. We looked at Harkey, Perry, Leia, you name it. We looked at them. And Leia's big advantage was they were already on the ground.
Yeah.
They had gear in the yard, ready to go. And look, I'm completely biased now. In my opinion, Leia, there's no other system.
Because we don't have any affiliation to Leia.
I don't either.
We just genuinely like them.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people think, he's probably getting money from them to say this or that. But we don't. We're not sponsored by anyone.
They take money from me.
Yeah. Well, they did with us. When I had the scaffolding business, we bought into Leia, and that was, I was spearheaded that kind of, I was wanting to get into Leia because I think it's not just the product, because it's a great product, but let's have it right.
Yep.
And I'm sure it's probably not the place to say it because we're at their headquarters. But,
Probably not.
there are other ring lock systems, and they're very, very, very similar. And most of them, there's very little sort of to pick between them.
Yep.
The lightweight, I think, is a big advantage, but from a technical, from a material perspective, not a lot to pick between. Say AtPac,
Or Doka now they call it.
Doka, certainly. Yeah. Scafformer, another. There's Step Up in the UK. There's MJ Garoo, just another. It's ring lock scaffolding.
There's plenty of systems.
Plenty of systems.
Horses for courses. It's all about what works for you and your application.
However, it's the support, I think, with Leia. I think it's the, they'll not only will they give you the product, they'll show you how to use the product, they'll give you kind of an on-ramp in terms of how you would purchase the product, which a lot of other companies don't do. I'm not going to name the name, but I remember when we were looking to go into system scaffolding, we went to another manufacturer and they were like, yeah, there's the yard, there's the kit. You know how to use it, don't you? Yeah, sound. What? Do you want bacon butter? Do you want a bacon sandwich out of it? And then it was like, here's the price list. And it probably was about 15% cheaper than original Leia. However, are you going to support us with design as and when we need it? No, Leia will. Are you going to, support even things like parts lists? It's a weight off your mind. Do you know what I mean? It's another job that you don't have to do that they'll kind of take on for you. So I think, and then even like the little cool things like the VR headsets and stuff, like when they took us to Eggborough and like, have a look at this, and like, the practical application of it, does anyone really need it to that extent? Yeah. Maybe not yet. Maybe it's a bit ahead of its time, but it's even from a selling point as a gimmick to your customer.
It's plenty of cool things.
Yeah.
The world's changing, so.
You want to see it? Here it is. Walk around the first lift. Scaffplan sort of achieved something similar, I believe,
Yeah, similar things. But probably just getting back to the original question was that we sold off all our Quick Stage, moved into Leia, and then we were kind of one of the first adopters in Australia, doing things, and people, man, I still remember getting, pardon me, messages on LinkedIn or people calling me up saying, mate, that picture that you put up, you need to pull that down. You can't do that. Like what you've done is you can't just cantilever off a brace. You got to have this and that. You got to have spurs.
The
You got to have
scaff
all
police.
this.
Yeah.
And all the keyboard warriors that know better than the designers. And I guess that was a big thing with people understanding what you can and can't actually do with the system and really pushing it to the limits. And that's one of the big things we've really pushed, and what's really made Benchmark what it is the whole philosophy of using the least amount of gear, taking the least amount of time to get the maximum result. And so that's where Layer was a perfect synergy.
And you get these people going, oh, it's cutting corners, and you're like, yeah. But as if we can, and it's safe to do so.
Smart and it's safe.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But I challenge anyone that says that I can't use Layer, it's not as good as tube and fit. We got probably maybe 2 stillages of tube, maybe a couple of 100 fittings in our yard.
You've not filed for bankruptcy yet, have you?
So, mate, there's very few things that we can do in Layer that can be done in tube that can't be done in Layer.
No, I massively agree.
So I guess then moved into Layer, and then again taking that whole getting the maximum benefit out of the gear. We use all different scaffold design systems. There's plenty of them out there, and if all of them are kind of good at their own thing, because we were really trying to push the limits and try and do something different that no one else has really done, we started developing our own software. Because like I said, everything was good at one thing, but we didn't want to use 4 or 5 different systems.
Yeah, that used to frustrate the life out of me as well.
Torture.
Like you log into this, log into that, you pull this from here and that from there, and you just want to be able to
you want to focus.
log in and
yeah,
go.
exactly right. So we started building it all ourselves. Again, probably not a real smart business decision when there's all these platforms out there already, throwing a heap of money after developing it from scratch. Started getting some real crazy results, like doing things in 3D models and getting details that people had never seen. And then other scaffolders would say, hey, where'd you do that design, or where'd that come from? And so we're like, oh, it's just all our internal stuff.
Yeah.
They said, oh, can we use your program? So piss off, this is mine. We're doing this for ourselves. Why would we share it with you? And then over time, more and more people hit us up and we said, look, maybe we're onto something.
Yeah.
Maybe we should take this software, take all the IP and turn it into a separate business. And then that's where Scaff Plan comes from.
Right.
So bit of a journey, but
yeah. So what's your sort of role in Scaff Plan, Nikki? Is it from a
sales and sort of partnerships perspective? So I'll work with people like Layer, Baltics and BSA and that, and sort of figure out how, I guess, our audiences and our target markets can work together to sort of benefit the most from each other and get the most out of not just our software, but even things like Layer's local offering and their training and their support and all that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah.
So we sort of try and figure out ways that we don't just silo ourselves. We want to work with like the local regions, the local companies, local customers. So it's, nice team we sort of try and form.
yeah, I'm a scaffolder. I've been since I left school. I love it. Live and breathe it. I don't know anything about software. Don't know anything about sales. Don't know anything about marketing. I know what I want the program to do. How it needs to act and perform. And then there's people like Nikita that know how to.
Yeah.
I hate nothing more than sales.
I think that's the sign of a good director, though. I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass, but I do think that's the sign of a good director. That's your job. It's in the title. It's directing other people to. You've got an idea, but it's having other people fulfill it. I'd probably say that I need to get a lot better at that. Because I think, all right, well, there's this website and I can build it and I can do this and do that. And then I start trying to build it myself. Yeah. And then you go down a million rabbit holes. And
interesting story.
I'm not spending time developing the business. I'm just going down this.
Yeah. And I was kind of forced to do it because when I first started Benchmark, I did everything. I'd load the trucks, I'd do the quotes, I'd do the invoices, I'd go build the job, and it was killing me.
Yeah.
A couple of years in, I'd sleep at the office. I'd roll my swag out. There's another Aussie slang for it. I'd roll my swag out in the office, be there from sun up to sundown, sleep there over night time, and it was killing me.
Yeah.
And that's where I had to kind of force myself to bring in other people. Yeah. And especially inside Benchmark, we had some cracking people in there. Now, like I haven't worked in Benchmark for probably 2 or 3 years now.
Oh, really?
Been focusing on the software. So I'm there, I still work in there. Give a shout out to the guys like Chippy, Kev, Jason. Those guys have held the fort for me for couple of years, and
Fair play.
And so I've been able to work on the software, and they take over the running of the business. And couldn't do it without people like that. And that was the realization with, if I want to take this, whether it's scaffold, hairdressing, lawyers, it doesn't matter what it is. If you want to take your business to the next level, you just got to bring in good people.
Yeah, good people. And let go of the reins.
Yeah,
Not
got
let
it.
go, but, you've got to...
Bit of trust.
And I
Yeah,
really
delegate.
struggled. I really struggled because I'm a bit of a control freak. And I want things done
Yeah.
my way. I want it done perfectly. But it's not until you have that, when the penny drops, a little light bulb goes off and you realize that these guys are actually better than what I am at it.
Yeah.
And that I'm actually holding us
That's
back.
quite a sort of humble thing to be able to say as well.
Yeah, and it hurts the ego a little bit.
Yeah.
When you're like Chippy, for example, he's half Polish, Ukrainian, New Zealand, Australian, all these little, he's like a little mongrel dog all
Yeah.
bred together. The way that he can look at a job, work out how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost, how to do the design.
And it's
blows me away.
intuitive.
Oh, incredible. I've never seen anyone like it.
Yeah.
And without bringing
Magic.
people like that in, you just
Yeah.
stagnate. You can't scale.
Yeah.
And Nikita's no different. We got other marketing, sales, support guys. Like the people that we got in Scaff Plans, like next
Really
level.
great team.
Mm.
And it's good because
It's scary.
It is scary, but I feel like we've got a really great team, and Simon's sort of given us the reins because he knows what we're good at. He knows that we're passionate about Scaff Plan and like getting what we need to get out of it too. So he's sort of given us the reins and being like, I trust you. I know you know what you're doing.
Like I said, sales and marketing, I hate it. I don't like
I really
hate
do.
it.
It's funny because I feel like I can sell a product that I believe in.
Yep.
Like, so when I talk about Scaff Plan and I talk about how great I think it is, I'm being genuine. Do you know what I mean? I do
Yeah.
think it's, and I could, and the same with Leia as well. Do you know what I mean? Like just before, they're
Yeah,
not
exactly.
funding me to say this stuff.
Yeah.
I believe it. So could I sell it? For me, I find the difficult part about sales is the ask.
Yep.
Like I'm from a kind of a tough upbringing, background where there's not a lot of opportunities economically and all the rest of it. It's that kind of background, and we have this attitude where no, I'm not taking that. I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yep.
Pride.
Yeah, I don't feel.
So to ask someone for money, which is ultimately what sales is, to ask someone for money, I always find it really difficult because I feel like you're being cheeky. And then I'm the easiest person. I shouldn't fucking admit this on camera, but I'm the easiest person in the world to haggle down because I'm like, oh, go on then.
Oh, why not?
Because I don't want to seem like I'm.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So bringing the right people in to do that for you.
And I was kind of forced not to fail. Like when I started, I went to my mum and I said, I want to start this scaffold business. And, we're saying from a family, we had nothing growing up with, it never went without, but we never had. anything to do that. And then so my mum mortgaged her house to give me some money to go and buy some scaffold.
Wow.
So I couldn't fail.
Yeah.
For me, it was like, I've just got to make this work. And like I said, the sales, the marketing, hate it. But I've kind of forced myself. Like walking around here, people say, oh, yeah, I talk to you on LinkedIn. I see your stuff. I hate LinkedIn.
Yeah, we were saying, weren't we? We were saying before off air, we were just having a chat. And like the direct to camera stuff, I think people think because I do this, that I'll look this sort of, everybody look at me. I fucking hate it.
I get
To
so
talk to a camera
uncomfortable.
is so, yeah.
And then, all these people saying, oh, Simon, I talk to you on LinkedIn, love what you're doing, it's great. And I'm just like, this is kind of, you've forced yourself to do it because you know it's the right thing to do. You know it's what the business needs. As uncomfortable as you are, sometimes you just got to put your big boy pants on and say, stop being a sook, just do what needs to be done.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's definitely paid dividends, hasn't it? Because, people in the UK, know who you are.
It's
And
weird.
I think, which is it's strange.
Boy from the bush in North Queensland, isn't it?
Yeah.
People in the other side of the world know who you are.
But I think that's certainly going to open doors for Scaff Plan.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting one for you. A few years ago, there was the conversation about, and I know you spoke about this a couple of minutes ago, but like about changing the standards in Australia. And I think there was a few years ago, there was like a push to maybe make something similar to what we have in the UK, which is like the NASC.
Yep.
And you've been pretty vocal in pushing for that sort of change.
Yep. I've upset a lot of people along the way.
Yeah, and I can imagine that but you have to sometimes.
Yep.
How do you think Scaff Plan plays into that?
There's some big things happening in the Australian industry as a whole. There's just there wasn't a scaffold association, then there wasn't, and then there was a state-based one, and now it's just opened up on a national level. So like the guys in New Zealand, SANS, they do a phenomenal job of their scaffold association. Same as the NASC and the Scaffold Association in the UK. There's a lot of people doing some really great things, but Australia's kind of a bit of a dinosaur. You know, we've been left behind. But
I see the UK like that. I do. I think we can all learn from each other.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And the good thing is now Australia's finally making some inroads, and now we've got a national association, which is a common voice for the entire industry.
Yeah, I think
And
that's
move
huge.
through it
I think that's massive because you'll probably know this little sort of in joke, but they used to say that Western Australia WA stood for wait a while
Exactly.
because everything seemed to catch on that little bit later there. So having it roll out nationally is huge, I think.
And did you see how that was me not liking to talk about sales, how I transitioned away from your question?
Really
and put it
subtle,
into
wasn't
something
it?
else?
Yeah,
So, I mean, like Scaff Plan, we're doing some pretty cool things.
we are. We're doing some pretty
What's
special
it
stuff.
The way I see, why I mentioned it in the same breath as like the rollout of a national scaffolding organisation or whatever you would call it. There's this big push with the UK of designing out risk at the planning phase. We even have a law that sort of, a regulation that we have to follow, which is called the Construction Design and Management Regulations. And massive emphasis on construction phase planning. And as I say, designing out risk. Scaff Plan. So really, that's putting that design element, that design capability in the hands of the people, the scaffolders,
and that's a
rather than
really
having
good
to
point.
subcontract it out.
So like I said, there's heaps of different companies out there that do software for scaffold design. But what we've done is we've looked at it as a total different approach, because there's a difference between people that do designs because they want to, and people that do designs because they have to. So we've come from the angle of it's a whole workflow management piece. It's not just a matter of doing a design. It's a matter of planning it, getting the gear right, getting the guys right, doing the designs, collaborating with the contractors, collaborating with you guys. By the time you turn up on site, your success has already been determined.
Yeah.
If you just send a truck or a lorry, you call it lorries?
It depends where you are in the country. Wagon in
Wagon.
in
Wagon.
Manchester, but lorry in London.
Lorry, we'll call it trucks. If you send a truck full of tube, bucket load of fittings, heap of timber planks, and you just rely on the guys on site to build it, you're setting yourself up to not maximize your absolute return, because you're relying on the guys on site, knowing what they're doing a good job. But the problem we find, and I'm sure the UK is the same, is those really skilled scaffolders, the guys that are top of the game, they're in their 40s, they're in their 50s, they're getting older.
Yeah.
And these younger guys coming through, they learn differently, they do things differently, and that knowledge is not getting passed down the generations.
No.
So we need to set these guys up with detailed 3D models. We've already spoken to the customer.
Speak
spoken
to them in their
clients.
language.
Yeah. How many kids now sit at home playing video games? And now we've got, like you touched on before, the virtual reality, and we've got you can walk around with an iPad and you can see it all in augmented reality. That's how these kids learn.
Yeah, definitely.
No one wants it just drives me insane that we go into these super high detailed 3D drawings. We go down to the detail of the wall ties there. This is the coupler. This is the way it's facing. And then we go from a beautiful detailed 3D model down to a shitty 2D PDF drawing of a couple of sections and elevations. It doesn't make sense.
No, and really, I'm not slagging this software off, by the way, but
Go for it.
really, that is
best.
what TG20 is. TG20 ePortal is that it's brilliant.
Oh, so quick and so fast, so easy.
And because it's cloud based, you can just log in from anywhere. I can have and I used to show off of it, to clients. You used to be like, so what is it? Is it Birdcage? And it's this, how many of this? There you go. That. And they go,
It's done.
oh, fantastic. That's brilliant. What's that? And they're really impressed by it.
Yep.
But like you say, the issue is for like an independent scaffold, you've got a PDF of a flat face of a scaffold and not much else.
Yeah.
With stuff like, Scaff Plan, Lay Plan, probably similar. I know that there are other software, services that we've used or played around with, and you get you're getting the gear list. You know what's going into the scaffold. You can put your own inventory into that software, and it can spit out. Right, well, you've got this many of this. You need this many of this.
But that's a really good example of that's a scaffold design.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're trying to look at it from a holistic approach. So we get right in at the start. We either get a 3D model from the customer, or you create your own 3D model. You go through, you do the scaffold design. And then when you're collaborating with your customer or the client or whoever it is, you just send them a link to a live 3D model. No software. They can just open it up on a web browser.
Yeah.
They can go through, do a full review and say, hang on, we need to change that deck's too high or too low or whatever. Comes back, you can update it all live. Got all full, like a project management suite in there where you can create tasks and assign them to different people, put deadlines in it. Then once it comes back, you can then send that off to an engineer or someone who needs to check the design. Then once it comes back, you got all your stock, you got reports, you got all your engineering calcs, does it all inside the program for you. And then even when you guys are out on site, rather than giving them a set of drawings, just give them a link or a QR code. They download a live 3D model, and then they can even communicate with the designer back in the office, saying we can't put this leg here because the pot plant's in the way. And the designer can just go, okay, we're just going to throw a beam across there, lace it up there, send them the updated model.
Yeah. And these are things that would have historically taken,
Weeks.
potentially weeks to back and forth between designers, etc. It's all
4 to 6 weeks sometimes waiting for designs or changes. So
Then
it's-
comes the controversial part, is then we give that model to the customer, so then they can go and check that you've done your job properly.
yeah.
So the scaffolders don't necessarily like that.
So there's the
because-
accountability built into the.
So that,
Yeah.
and no one wants scaffold. You got to either build something new or fix something old. Like it's a
Yeah.
means to an end.
Yes.
And
It's
for
a
the
service trade.
for the contractors, they don't know anything about scaffold.
Mm.
We know we need to walk around it. We need to fix that light or whatever.
Mm.
So now we give the power back to the contractor, where they can walk around in virtual reality, augmented reality, or just on a 3D model, and they can say, "Hey, this says there should be a tie there. Why is there no tie?" Scaffolder goes,
There wasn't enough on the van.
"Someone must have pulled it out. I don't know."
yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a full workflow right through to the end.
Mm.
And then that's why we've tried to take a different approach. So it's more than just doing a set of drawings.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably an important sort of thing to mention as well, because I think that's the fancy bit that people see.
Yeah.
They see the visual representation of
Yeah.
scaffolding, but like you say, workflow.
Exactly.
And this is where the companies are
And
really
processes are really important, I think.
spot on.
You can look at those lead companies in every region. And you could talk to anyone from every country. They'd be able to rattle off 2 or 3 in each region. And the reason that they are what they are is because they're doing things to the level of detail that's needed.
Mm.
Now, if we were always going to rely on the scaffolders to do the right thing, half of them don't come back from the pub at lunchtime.
They should have been at the pub at lunchtime.
Yeah. Like our big thought process has been let the guys in the office do the thinking and the
Yeah.
guys on site do the lifting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you can all work together and collaborate in that sort of
Yeah. I think,
Days.
like you say as well, putting the power back in the hands of because we have this thing with the principal contractor in the UK where they, ultimately, I think it might be similar in Australia as well. I remember doing the certificate for in health and safety, or I started it
Yep.
anyway.
Yeah.
And I think they call it a PCBU, a person conducting a business or undertaking.
Yep.
So I think that's what it translates to the principal contractor
Yep.
in the UK. And I don't think a lot of them realise that ultimately, if I own a business and I ask you to do a job, whether it's a scaffold, whether it's unblock a toilet or
doesn't
whatever,
matter what it is.
and there's risk attached to that risk is my responsibility to control.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? And I'm responsible for your health and safety while you're at work.
Yeah,
There's a big focus on being able to design that risk out, exactly like what you're saying. And
Mm.
if you can't design it out, what can you do? Can you eliminate it, substitute it,
Mm.
whatever you can do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed.
It's a good point, but it all comes back to, doing designs because you want to, because you have to.
Yeah.
And that's what sets companies apart. And
Yeah.
you can see
I
the
think,
ones
well,
that,
and countries as well, to an extent, because we know in the UK that if we don't follow these rules,
Yep.
that if something goes wrong, we can end up in prison. Worst case scenario, we can end up go to jail for it. Same in Australia.
well, I've set up Google alerts on my emails about scaffold collapses every day.
Mm.
If not every day, every second day. There's a scaffold collapse somewhere in the
Yeah.
world.
Oh, really?
Every day,
yeah.
mate. It's incredible. The amount of, we're in 2023 now. Still got scaffolds.
globally?
falling. Globally, yeah.
Mm.
It's
crazy.
ridiculous. It's too much.
I think that was probably the big tipping point, wasn't it? With Australia was what happened in Sydney in
Yeah. You're right.
2019, was it?
Yep.
And we, I think probably similar in the UK. We had a big collapse in 2006 in Milton Keynes. Huge scaffold collapse. Someone was killed in that one as well. It's unfortunate, isn't it, that that's what it sometimes takes to wake people up. You shouldn't be waiting for. Do you know there was actually a conversation about repealing the work at height regulations in
Really?
the UK just recently? Because we're out of Europe now. So they were talking about the term they used was sunsetting a lot of
it's a very
EU laws and
PC
directives.
way of describing it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like why? What without that, how can we?
Exactly.
How can we police? How can we police? How can we hold people accountable?
Yep.
Ocean blame when things go wrong.
Yeah, and I think when I was younger too, and I was on the tools in my early 20s, and we'd walk the ledges and do all sorts of crazy things back in the early 2000s, 2010s, and you're young, you're stupid, you don't have any responsibilities. It's not until you get older and you got kids, and you realise, like, do I need to do that?
Yeah,
and then when you're
and
looking
then
back
you realise the responsibility you've got to stop you guys doing that as well.
Yeah, and then even when I was doing those sort of things back when I was naive and didn't know any different, I'm somebody's kid.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And I think everyone's got the right to go to work, do their job safely, come home, because there's nothing that needs to be done that can't be done safely.
And I think on that, that's a perfect place for us to wrap up the conversation. You guys have been absolutely fantastic. I apologise for keeping you from the beers for longer than necessary, but it's been a fascinating chat.
Yeah, it's good.
Hopefully we can continue over a few beers later on in the day.
Most
Sounds
definitely.
great. Appreciate your time.
Guys, thank you.